welcome down to the Clubhouse London and Going For Two Week 10 report. We obviously are short one guy. We got Chad at home recovering from a little bit of elective cosmetic surgery. We'll use that as the teaser. Now, hopefully he's doing well and his recovery's going well.
He's missing a party down here, though. It is busy.
It is.
It's starting to get cool outside. People are trying to find things to do inside. What better place to go than a place where you can play football, baseball, basketball, whatever you want to do here, right?
We had some rain today. We had quite a bit of rain.
Yeah.
We'll take the rain over the snow anytime. Should snow on Christmas, but that's really the only day that we fish for snow. A lot of people would consider what was happening today as football weather. As people that played football, we know that that's not true. It doesn't make it fun to watch, doesn't make it fun to play, but we did have lots of football going on.
Important day, by the way.
Important day, yeah.
Make sure we make mention of that, right? Remembrance Day, so want to make sure we acknowledge all the sacrifices that people have done for us in the past to give us the ability to do this stuff, talk like a bunch of idiots, right?
Right, yeah, exactly. Can't take that stuff for granted, and couldn't give enough thanks for that, so we appreciate that. And you know what? It was a memorable weekend, you know?
Mm-hmm.
We had some good ball on Saturday, a lot of different things moving around in the college football playoff.
Oh, I would love to focus on Saturday myself.
Yeah, and then, of course, Sunday comes around, and, even though the games kicked off at 9 a.m., the games really didn't kick off till about 1 o'clock, because I don't think anybody cared too much about that toilet bowl, but the fact that Bryce Young was smiling and celebrating a little bit, you got to feel a little bit good for that kid. I mean, I can't imagine there's a whole lot to talk about in that game, but it was nice to see that.
It's what's kind of crazy to me is that the NFL loves to flex their muscle, when it comes to viewership and putting games on important days, kind of saying that they were going to start imposing on the NBA's Christmas scheduling a little bit, right? Why don't they really test the waters and give us a primetime matchup at 9:30 in the friggin' morning? You telling me that there isn't a guy that would wake up to watch a Kansas City and a Chiefs and a Niners game at 9:30 in the morning over there? I know they have to do it based on the teams that have agreements over there and all that jazz.
Yeah, of course.
But give us a primetime matchup instead of these. It doesn't matter. If the Jaguars are good, they always match them against a horrible team. It's never just two powerhouses that are a good game to watch in the morning. I should say never, because it does rarely match up, but they don't go out of their way to certainly make it happen. And I think that's a good way to show, you guys want to know how powerful the NFL really is. 9:30 on a Sunday. Let's see who comes up and watches, right?
Well, it's the 9:30 window, right? They don't want to give a primetime proper game to that. Not like they're planning that in advance, but you have to somehow look into that a little bit.
Meanwhile, poor Europe, they had nothing but that horrible NFL Europe years ago to watch, and then now they get all the bad games that go over there. I know they're trying to grow the game, but this is not the way to do it.
I mean, the only thing that I thought was funny out of that whole thing was there was a sign in the crowd, a guy holding up a sign that said, Danny Euros. And I thought that was pretty funny, pretty clever.
Yeah.
Good on him for doing that.
Sure.
Crazy atmosphere, though.
Yeah.
But, not really putting butts in the seats. Actually, it might have gotten a butt kicked out of a seat, because if you're in the Mara family, you might be wondering how much longer Brian Daboll is going to be your coach.
Well, is it like I saw a pretty good tweet today that said that keeping Daniel Jones as your starter is the best scapegoat you could have right now.
Yeah.
Because you could just blame it on him no matter what every time. But at what point does your offensive guru coach that you hired?
Well, it's electric down here. There's some energy down here today.
Well, I think I saw somebody just drive at 348 yards. So, yeah, somebody's got some energy. But, yeah, at what point does your offensive guru coach that was hired start to turn the page? We see flashes just as much as I see flashes with Will Levis. Yeah. But Daniel Jones has been in the league long enough that he's earned a nickname called Danny Dimes after a couple of years, right? So, I don't know. I think Brian Daboll, as silly as this is going to get another chance.
Yeah.
And he's not going to get held liable for what's happened so far down there. Well, but then at the same time, how long does Mara get? Because this is Mara's deal. He's the one who went and strapped this team with cash. He's the one who gave Adoree fucking Jackson a few years ago $23 million a year, and the guy isn't in the league right now.
Well, and so I do think that if Daboll was to go away tomorrow, I also think Matt Eberflus is not far behind in Chicago, which is the tie-in here. I would see. I don't know if Dayball becomes the head coach there, but whoever does become the head coach there, I would put Dayball in charge of that offense. If you're gonna get something, like he did get something out of Daniel Jones, Dayball was part of the
You're calling not only him getting fired, but getting hired in Chicago.
Well,
you're going right. You're turning the whole page.
Well, look, you got to turn the page. He
just Sheldon Keefed him.
He's somewhat pulled together Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen kind of came together himself through Joe Brady. But if you want to give this Caleb Williams character the proper who looks like he might have been the fourth or fifth best quarterback in the
Shut your damn mouth. Listen,
I'm just
it's an absolute clown show down in Chicago.
It
is a clown show in Chicago. Eberflus is a horrible head coach. And there is no aspect about him that I would want to get behind as a player. And then there's a highlight yesterday where I believe it might be the OC or the quarterback coach or something, but he's openly like kind of laughing while talking with Caleb Williams, and when the guy turns his head, that's when Caleb kind of like shakes his head as if like, you know, what is this guy even doing here right now? And I look at the whole organization, aside from the GM, I still really do like that GM there. I think that he drives.
The GM brought him in.
Well, I think that he drives a good player culture. I think the people want to play for him. When they spend 20 minutes talking to him, they're willing to sign the dotted line. Okay. But I think that the coaches that they have there are doing absolutely no favors to Caleb Williams or the other side of the ball too. Something has gone wrong when you got a guy like that. His name is slipping. Is the one who effed up last weekend there, where he was mocking the fans and the Hail Mary went on him.
Oh, Tyree Stevenson.
Yeah. This is a team that was known for their DBs last year, known for their defense. That was something that was strong last year. You had a corner that wanted to stick around with them because the fans deserved more. Right. And this year, they've taken a gigantic step back.
Well, and they took a step back because they started from scratch at quarterback. And again, it's not that Justin Fields was ready. But, I mean, you saw what a little bit of pressure off of a guy can do. You go onto a team built similar to Chicago last year, but no pressure on the kid. And they got a little bit of a better run game and, you know, a more structured offense. He goes 4-2. And that's still not even to be the best quarterback on the team. But what the Bears did was they gave up on him. They sent something through the locker room. There was a lot of guys there last year that probably thought Justin Fields deserved another chance. They move on. They turn the page. No big deal. But you can't expect a guy like Caleb Williams, who really hasn't played good football, with the exception of those 3 weeks this year, since 2002 or 2022. Sorry, when he was a Heisman. He did not have a good 23 year in college. He really lived off of his laurels coming into the draft. I get why they would take him. I get that there's some of those plays there, but you're telling me week 10 of this year, if we were redoing the draft, is Caleb Williams still the first overall? And I'm not giving up on him. I never said that he was going to be terrible. You said generational. I said mediocre. Would Caleb Williams still be the first overall pick in the draft for you?
I'm not. I've watched enough Chicago because I really am a fan of Caleb Williams.
Okay.
I watched enough Chicago games to say that this is not his fault. The same way that I've watched enough Tennessee games to say that it is Will Levis's fault.
Chad believes that this is Caleb Williams' only contract with Detroit, but I'll let you keep going.
Only contract with Chicago?
Sorry, yeah, with Chicago.
Okay. I'm sorry, I don't know if you said NFL, like in the league.
I said Detroit, but yeah, he'll play on another team, but this will be the only contract he signs in Chicago, according to Chad from the couch.
There are multiple offensive gaffes, as I continue to talk about over and over again. DeAndre Swift has. Do you remember? I'm going to talk old school here now, Shane. We're going to bring us back to high school.
Are we going back to Georgia?
We're going back to high school, Shane.
Okay.
Do you remember when we would watch film after our games and we had an athlete on our team, Omar Abdul Kareem, Mr. Basketball?
Yeah.
Played running back for us for a little bit, and guy probably averaged 3.5 yards a carry because he bounced it outside every time.
Yep.
But when we would watch the replay, that hole was the size that a semi could drive through it. I know it was high school football, but a semi could drive through it. There are multiple plays that I watch where DeAndre Swift does the exact same thing and bounces it to the outside and gets 3.5 yards rather than taking it up the gut. And I think this is just an aspect of the offense that doesn't chug.
Yep.
And unfortunately, more pressure then falls on Caleb because the 4 yards that should have been got extra on the run are now going to fall on the quarterback's arm. And we've talked over and over and over again about oh my God, his name's slipping my mind too now. The wide receiver from LA that went over there now.
Keenan Allen.
Keenan Allen. The guy is a shell of himself. Absolute shell. He still has the hands. Like, he still can catch anything that's thrown his way. But you run faster than him, Shane. Right?
Well, I'm a fast guy.
Well, yeah.
So I run fast.
I mean currently. I'm not talking about in high school still, okay? I'm talking about currently. So that's my issue that I have with Chicago. Their offensive line banged up, hasn't helped them at all. But it's just from top down. I talked about this with Buffalo a few years ago where I started to see the cracks in the armor, and you already see it in Chicago. Eberflus was a lame duck hire from the rip. I don't think anybody really enjoyed that one, but it certainly is starting to come and rear its ugly head now. And I know that I'm going to defend a lot of the picks that I have. I'm that kind of guy, but I'm still not willing to say that Caleb Williams isn't the guy that can do it in Chicago.
That's not the question I asked you. What I asked you was, if you were doing the draft over again on week 10, you've seen other people play, do you still feel like Caleb Williams is the first overall pick?
Who's your number one?
That's not. What are we doing here? Are you being a lawyer?
I'm a whataboutism right now.
So my number 1 and 2 were clear coming out, and that was Jaden Daniels and Drake May.
Okay.
Those were my 1-2 coming out, and those are two guys. I will say I don't think I gave enough credit to Bo Nix. I'd say that he is far and away the most improved quarterback.
I talk a lot about moxie on this show. That guy's got mox.
He does.
Yeah.
And if he was playing line in that field goal, I don't think they would have broke through. I think he would have stopped it. But at the end of the day, you know, they are where they are. But it seems like he responds well to the way Sean Payton is coaching him. Not everyone did that. Russell Wilson did not respond well to Sean Payton. I don't think Sean Payton's a good guy. I think that he's probably like he probably hits like animals like when the doors are closed. Mm-hmm. He doesn't look like a nice person. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, if I were to redraft right now, I'm going to say I would go Jaden Daniels. Go back, check the tape. I already said it way back when. I would say Drake May, who I was beating that drum that he should have been the first overall pick before I really watched much Jaden Daniels. I'm going to just give the benefit of the doubt to Michael Penix because he hasn't done anything. Then I would go Caleb. Then I would go Bo Nix. But all of those guys, with the exception of Penix, have beaten Caleb Williams this year and made him look bad. So, where are you? Are you saying that Caleb Williams is still the first overall pick? I need an answer because we need to move off. We've been talking about Chicago for way too long.
I think Jaden is the only person who maybe pushes that envelope for me.
Okay. You don't like Drake?
No. I'm not his number one.
I think that
I have a big issue with any quarterback that still runs like Tom Brady.
Okay.
In 2024.
All right, so this is a race thing now.
I just if you can't give me
nice.
If you can't give me mobility with a laser arm, what good are you to be the number one pick?
Jeez. It is 2024.
Well, now one last little bit there about the Caleb Williams there and not learning your mistakes, and you mentioned Justin Fields, is they aren't far off as far as what they do on the field, right? Like, I still think that Caleb's a far better thrower than Justin Fields is, and Justin Fields is a far better runner than Caleb Williams is. But what they bring to the field for you as far as an offense, because you're not expecting your quarterback to get 100 yards for you every game, but if he can get you 50 yards in a game and get a few good chunks while doing it, then that's what you want. Those two guys, eerily similar. So it's really astounding to me, still looking back, that they go and get rid of Justin Fields to draft a guy that's almost like Justin Fields. Like, it almost seems to me the type of offense that they really did want to have there was somebody like Drake May.
Yeah, and
or
I
Bo
agree.
Nix.
We talked about this in a previous show, and that's why I thought they needed to go a different direction. When you really think about it, like, they traded down at athlete, and might have tried to think that they're upgrading at like arm strength, they're upgrading at the splash play, but Justin Fields had some turnover issues in Chicago. They seemed like they had that cleaned up in Pittsburgh a little bit, but if Caleb Williams is going to continue to hold the ball and run around like looking for that perfect play, he's going to continue to get the same result. Look, he came into the league and it was hard to judge him after 3-4 weeks because no one knows where they're supposed to be at. And then he had that stretch where you're like, okay, like, he looks like he actually might be pretty good. Maybe I might have to like eat a bag of shit and like tell Kalen I was wrong. And then the NFL figured him out. The NFL knows exactly what to do to him. Like, and I'm going to say the same thing, and we're going to transition quickly, and we don't have to spend a ton of time on it, but I also believe that Mike Tomlin figured something out on Jaden Daniels. He is not comfortable being a pocket passer. They forced him to be a pocket passer. The way that they set their defense up, the way that they rushed their edges and held the line, Jaden Daniels had 3 rushes for 5 yards. Mm-hmm. And that showed the crack in where they're at. You listen to, like, the talking heads continue to go on about it. They say, oh, well, Brian Robinson wasn't there, so it's a big deal. Well, they've won without Brian Robinson against other teams.
Yes.
Daniels still played well against those teams.
They also put the ball on the ground from Rodriguez there. Again, that guy did it twice to them now, unfortunately.
Are you talking about Pittsburgh? In the Pittsburgh game? He didn't fumble.
He fumbled it.
No, he didn't.
Washington?
He did not. Washington had 1 turnover, and it was on a punt. I'm telling you, the offense didn't turn the ball over. They were up 10 points, but when push came to shove, you keep the playmaker in the pocket. You don't let him get to the outside. They had Minka Fitzpatrick roaming around playing free safety. Mm-hmm. They just played their structure. They kind of bored him to death. At the end of the day, that's why Mike Tomlin says he's a well-compensated man. And the way that the Steelers were able to control towards the end of that game. And look, you need 10 yards, and they give him 9.7 yards.
Yeah.
Still 4th down. Still a turnover.
So, I think I've asked this question to you before in heated, drunk arguments. If Mike Tomlin's there another 10 years, give me 8 years, and you guys do your never less than 500 season, but never do anything beyond that, do you eventually stop drinking the tea and say that he's the most mediocre head coach of all time?
How is he the most mediocre head coach
mediocre,
of all time?
Hey, listen, mediocre means average.
No, but I'm saying, how is that even possible?
Well, he's nothing that's flash, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
He's never going to give you anything that's underhanded in a game, but he isn't really go over the top to give you anything flashy either.
Well, he does have a famous saying that you don't get extra points for style, but there are no style points in the NFL. And what I'm going to say to you is this. So, pre-Kansas City Chiefs, would you have said that Andy Reid was a mediocre head coach?
Yeah. I think that was what got him canned, was that he couldn't do it in the big game, right? I mean, that's what got him fired, was it not?
Well, so what flipped in him now?
What flipped in him was that he was still okay with Alex Smith and then was really good with Patrick Mahomes.
Right. So I would not have said that. I think that the Eagles were stupid for doing that. The Eagles make knee-jerk reactions, and it's why they haven't always had the stability in their organization. You're telling me that pre-Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid wouldn't have made the Hall of Fame? He probably, before the Chiefs, I'm going to say he probably had,
I think it's really
150 wins.
For a guy that flexes his rings all the time.
No,
But let's hear me out. For a guy who flexes, but a guy who flexes his rings, I find it amusing that you're defending somebody who couldn't win.
No, I'm making a point. Like, you're saying mediocre because they don't have losing seasons. Like, because they never go 5-12 and get a top 10 pick. That doesn't make him a mediocre. So if they went 5-12 every 4 years and got a top 10 pick and built a better roster and won an extra Super Bowl once, like, what do you do? Like, does that make you more competitive? Does that make you a better coach? I don't think so. I think stability, consistency, and
they're consistent.
Making guys
they consistently don't win the big noise games.
Well, except for the Super Bowl.
Shane, your nuts barely had hair on them when that Super Bowl happened. Come on.
In 2010?
He's been. That was
14 years ago.
So long ago in the grand scheme of things.
We were in our mid-20s when that happened.
It's in the grand scheme of things of football.
When do you think I went through puberty? I had a child at 21, bro. You're telling me, like, if my nuts didn't have hair, it was by choice.
That's what I'm talking about.
All right, Liam said no. We can't talk about that. What I'm telling you is somebody being consistent does not make them mediocre. Somebody not being splashy does not make them mediocre. Would you rather be Nick Sirianni last year and go 11-0 and then, like, lose 5 of 6 down the stretch and then get rolled in the wild card?
He hasn't won anything either. So, I mean, if he continues to do what he's done over the next 5 years.
Who's a splashy coach that you feel is, like, do you think that Mike Tomlin is a better coach than Sean McVay? Because Sean McVay came out like a bat out of hell. Do you think he's a better head coach than Kyle Shanahan? Because Kyle Shanahan hasn't done dick all either, but he continues to be splashy and cute.
Well, I don't know if I'd call him cute or splashy either.
Yo, what about Matt LaFleur? Let's just pick all the handsome guys.
Why are we going there?
We're just picking all the handsome dudes.
I just think that for a guy who's had as many years as he's had to put his
18 years,
his
never
boat together, that the only boat that is pulled into the championship port was the boat that was driven by somebody prior to him. That's all.
But that's not even true.
Come on! Oh, we talked a lot about the Steelers tonight. I know we're going there again. But, like, come on. That was Bill Cowher's team with a couple of additions from Tomlin when he got there. But
so, that defense was reconstructed by Mike Tomlin.
A couple of additions.
Reconstructed. But, yeah, really the credit for both of those Super Bowls goes to Kevin Colbert, who is retired GM now. But at the end of the day, like, you can't call somebody mediocre because they don't lose. You can't call somebody mediocre because they don't have, like, a bunch of crazy cute offenses. They continue to win. Last year, they made the playoffs. They started 4 different quarterbacks.
Let me give you an example. In the NBA, Bruce Popovich. Guy just wins. But when he also gets to the championship games, he won.
Okay.
Like, he made it to the next level every time.
So, Tomlin's coached in 2 Super Bowls. Well, technically, he's coached in 3 Super Bowls.
Oh,
technically, if we're being technical.
Stop it!
They've started counting Bill Belichick's Super Bowl with the Giants. So,
okay.
So let's just go ahead and count that. We're going to give a high five to the Bucs. So Mike Tomlin's coached in 3 Super Bowls.
Okay.
And he's won 2 of them.
Yeah.
So if it was baseball, he'd be Shohei Ohtani, and he would be getting $800 million.
That's a one way of looking at it.
Well, what's the other way of looking at it? You could be the Tennessee Titans and always be an inch short and continue to fire your head coach every 3 years and continue to recycle quarterbacks.
I'm not saying he even needs to go that route. I'm just surprised that a guy that, again, flaunts the rings, if he wasn't wearing your colors and that guy was wearing Bengals colors, I think that you may speak differently.
Well, look, I mean, have a look at John Harbaugh.
Oh, I didn't want to say it.
Yeah, let's talk about John Harbaugh.
You make fun of him all the time.
I make fun of him because he's a Harbaugh, not because he's a bad football coach.
Stop it. You made fun of him first because he was a Ravens head coach. Then you made fun of him because they couldn't put it in the show. They couldn't do it in the show. Then they got their show. They got their Super Bowl too.
Yeah, they won one.
So you still harp on him, and that guy is about on the same level. And from the outside looking in,
I would say about on the same level is a little
It's like because you're a Steelers fan.
No.
Stop it. Stop it.
We could just go straight by wins. Like, wins is not even close, so I get it. Tomlin was there 2 years before, so he's got a head start by maybe 20 wins or so. But Baltimore has their ups and downs, and Baltimore has been a team known to slip under the 500 mark, and Baltimore has been a team that if Lamar Jackson goes away, does Baltimore continue to win? The answer is no. When Ben Roethlisberger got hurt,
the shell of Ben.
No, we're talking about Ben Roethlisberger, like 2021.
The shell of Ben Roethlisberger. 2021, he wasn't Ben Roethlisberger anymore.
That you would have sucked a guy's dick to get that guy on the Tennessee Titans for 1 year.
I don't know.
I guarantee it.
The guy was like a Kerry Collins minus 2.0 there at that point in his career.
You have got to be kidding me.
At that point in his career, he might have been. He might have been.
That's embarrassing. You need to stop.
Talk about living on your laurels. Anyway, what's the? We're done talking about the Steelers. 'Cause that's a long segment about them. What's the next game that you wanted to talk about? Anything else? Did you have fun watching the Niners and the Bucks game? Sorry, Chad.
I got to tell you, I didn't watch any of it.
Did you see highlights? Did you see Debo going at the kicker and the long snapper? What was he, number 46? I love when those guys step up, eh?
And you know what? Like, good for him for stepping up. Good for Debo for voicing his opinion. But even better, Jake Moody, who really the fight was all about, says in the press conference that, it's just guys being guys, you know. We're going to have disagreements on the sideline. So I think that was the right way to look at it, the right way to approach it. 49ers, you know, you want to talk about a shell. The 49ers are a shell. And that's not a terrible Tampa team. That Tampa team has beat Detroit, the only ones that have. They took Kansas City down to overtime, and then they obviously had a final kick against the 49ers. But the 49ers were just missing McCaffrey, remember? They got him back. I don't think he had 50 yards rushing. I mean, I saw one play that he was kind of up the seam a little bit. Looks like Chad's taking the Tennessee Titans strategy. They're gonna play for a top 10 pick, according to him.
Hey man, we're number 3. We are so back. Yeah. I was you weren't here for that one, but I said, you know, get your win. I guess Bill Callahan was crying after about how they really needed that, and I said, okay, cool, get whatever you need out of this win and just lose the rest of the fucking season, right?
Well, at the end of the Tennessee and a few other teams are playing for quarterbacks, and it might not be the flashiest class because there's no Arch Manning quite yet. There's no Caleb Williams, which is a good thing. But I do think that
there's a Caleb Williams in this draft. Not a generational talent.
Who is it?
I just mean attitude-wise.
Oh.
It's Shadur.
Oh, is he got a bad attitude?
The antics he pulled, just every game he's pulling off antics. This past game, what it was and this. Actually, I want to talk wholly about what happened during that. So the pregame, you got a Buffalo's player walking around, kicking over the end zone pylons, and then the field staff would go and reset the pylons up, and he'd walk over and kick them over again. The attitude on this Buffalo's team sucks. It absolutely sucks. Then you had Prime going at the ref, and the ref telling him, like, your players are instigating this crap kind of thing. The ref doesn't really – I don't really agree with the ref in that regard. Like, the players are going to trash talk, and that's what Prime said. That's football. That's football. But then at the end of the game, or at one of the touchdowns, the ball boy from Texas Tech goes to try and get the ball back, and Shadur faces him up, like chest bumps him and is in his face and yelling at him a little bit. And it's just like, pal, you're going to get sunned somewhere. Like, who used to do that segment on ESPN was where somebody
got jacked up.
He got jacked up, but he would also say, like, you got sunned.
Not allowed to do that anymore after that concussion movie.
Yeah.
That concussion movie ruined everything.
But this guy's going to get smoked. This guy isn't any bigger than Bryce Young on the field, and Bryce Young looks, and we've gone on and on about how small he looks, and that attitude, it's going to take a certain coach to get it wrangled in, for sure.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Like, we were talking about it briefly before we came on, because we've been talking about who's the guy that's going to stand out, who's going to make the noise. I don't necessarily think that a lot of these quarterbacks are going to go, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, anything like that. There will be one, maybe two that end up in the top 10. But I do think that there's going to be some guys that from like the 15 to 27 range, where teams might be sneaking back in for a second first-round pick, and some of the better teams, because the lack of depth at some of the positions that they might need, might just trade out of the first and try and collect another first for next year or something. But guys like Cam Ward, you got to keep an eye on. Quinn Ewers, even though
another multi-touchdown game for Quinn,
he's been banged up, I think that he's going to be very similar to a Bo Nix when it comes to being in the NFL. Where he and some of these other guys might differ is, look, we've had some pretty heavy quarterback drafts coming in. Depending on who's going to be a free agent at quarterback here, there just might not be spots for people to become starters right away. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I told you that I think Cam Ward could be and reminds me of Jordan Love. Now, for his sake, I really hope he doesn't get drafted to the Jets and get stuck behind Aaron Rodgers, because that's a tough place to be.
Is it? Because, listen, the Jets are a knee-jerk team too, knee-jerk franchise. Is it out of the realm of the possibility that they decide to cut ties with all this shit this offseason?
Chad said Shador Sanders is 6'2", 215, and Bryce Young is a high school sophomore. Ouch.
Not wrong. But is it out of the realm of the possibility that they decide to walk? They just got thrashed by the Cardinals.
Yeah.
And it's not even like Rodgers had a bad stat line as far as incompletions go. I mean, he still had less than 200 yards passing. But how many games have we seen now? Sub 200 yard passing, 5 incompletions, looks great on the papers. But that's not winning a game in today's NFL.
Yeah, so maybe Aaron Rodgers is a good person to talk about for a second, because we've seen someone recently leave their legacy in Seattle, went to Denver, and all the talk was, because Russell Wilson for 11 years was a dude in Seattle, like a third-round pick, took them to multiple Super Bowls, won one, but overall like a guy you could rely on in playoffs, whatever. He went to Denver. They thought, okay, he's going to do the same thing in Denver. Nothing. And people were saying he's losing his Hall of Fame status. What he built in Seattle is ruining it. I heard somebody, some old linebacker came out today on his show and said because of what Russell Wilson's doing in Pittsburgh, they're going to reactivate his gold jacket status, which I'm pretty sure this was a guy without a gold jacket. I'll look that up after. But the question is Aaron Rodgers in the same boat if he stays, or has to just if he gets disbanded by the Jets, does somebody need to pick him up for him to reignite his status as potentially a first ballot Hall of Famer?
Did Brett Favre get a gold jacket?
Yeah.
Then yeah. I think it's going to be an ugly gold jacket at the end, just like it was for Brett Favre.
So you're saying no matter what happens to Aaron Rodgers, he's gold jacket?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it is.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just curious if the same thing holds true. Like, I would say that Aaron Rodgers has had a more prolific career than like Russell Wilson has, but Russell Wilson's played more Super Bowls.
I don't think that when I look back on it, because you're talking about this, you need to go on the team, and it's a perfect example of if Brett's career had have ended in New York and there was no Minnesota, he still would have got the jacket. The Minnesota got him the jacket.
They might have put the jacket over him just to cover him up, because he was doing some shit down there in New York.
The Minnesota, I think, got him the jacket, as weird as, because he was first ballot jacket.
Yeah.
He may have not have been, as weird as that is to think about,
right.
if he didn't have the Minnesota career, but that's what got him there. I don't even think that Aaron Rodgers needs to have somebody else pick him up for him to have that. He'll be maybe the second most after Brett Favre, polarizing figure to wear the gold jacket, absolutely. And that would be the only reason that I think he may not be first ballot, is the NFL themselves may spite him in some way.
Yeah, and, I wonder, like, you look around the league and you think, okay, let's just say the Jets blow it up. who is willing to take on Aaron? Like, where is there a home for him?
There isn't.
Like, would the Giants consider it? I don't think so.
I don't think that. Well, here's the problem. I don't think that Aaron has the ability at this point, as weird as this sounds, to pick and choose his place.
I agree.
I think that he would certainly have suitors that would give him an arm and a leg to come and play for them, but they wouldn't be good teams. We're talking the Carolinas, right? The Tennessees.
I was gonna say, like, as a Tennessee guy, would you take him as a bridge?
No.
Not for 2 years.
No. I would rather sit through the shit that I've sat through this year with Mason.
I guess it hurts less. Like, when you have expectation and you're losing, it's a big deal. Like, right now you have no expectation.
Well, the only difference when Will plays right now is at least I know I'm going to see at least a bit of an air show. I'm going to see somebody throw the ball at least once or twice a game. Not that Aaron Rodgers doesn't do that; he still throws the ball. But no, I just don't think that there's Aaron.
You'll probably get Devontae Adams with him.
He's still there. Like he wants a contract extension, but he's still under contract.
Yeah, I know.
But it's not as if Aaron Rodgers is putting butts in seats at this point in his career. The kids aren't there to watch him anymore, and any hype that our generation had on him, it's long gone. I think at this point.
Yeah, and I don't disagree, but I'm like, if there's a team out there, and I'm really struggling to find more teams than that, like. Cleveland couldn't afford it because they can't get off the Deshaun contract.
But why would they? Jameis Winston is doing everything they want and more.
Well,
he's a leader.
He's 1-1.
The fans love him. The community loves him. The players love him. Hell, even the coaches, as much as they benched the friggin' guy before this came up the way that it is right now, they've got to be loving what they're seeing too, right?
Yeah, well, I honestly don't think that there's a reasonable suitor. And I don't think that the Jets are in position to let him go either. So
why not? Tell me this.
They're going to start Tyrod Taylor?
Hold on.
Okay.
2 years ago, they had Zach Wilson. Last year, they had Aaron Rodgers and Zach Wilson. This year, they have Aaron Rodgers. Are they better off currently, right now, this week 10, 3 years later than Zach Wilson, than they were week 10 with Zach Wilson there?
No, I was chuckling at Chad's comment.
What was that?
He said, it's been 25 shitty years for the Titans. What's a couple more? He's on you.
Yeah. Anyway. But what was I just saying there? Sorry.
I don't remember. Oh, you're talking about Zach Wilson.
Yeah. So, are they better off in Week 10, 2024, than they were Week 10, 2020?
Yeah, so, like...
When you say they're not in a position, they were in a position to blow it up then with a first-round quarterback who you did invest in at that point.
Yeah, fair. I think it would be funny. Just poetic justice. They should trade him to the Raiders. And keep Devontae Adams for themselves. Just see how it all goes. Yeah. Chad says you have no comment. We do have to talk about last night's game.
Oh yeah.
And look, I was sitting there. I watched the Texans go up big, and I was like, huh. I kind of expected it, and I expected it because of the way that they performed against the Jets the week before. You come off Thursday Night Football, you kind of get your ass kicked. You got a home game, you got your Battle Reds on. It was looking good. Looked good up until the halftime. And, I don't know. Dan Campbell, I don't know if he's coach of the year. He's definitely motivator of the year, which probably translates to be the coach of the year. It's hard to imagine anybody else getting coach of the year right now when that guy is literally, I know that it was pre-recorded at commercial break, but he's literally giving his post-halftime speech to whoever the lady is on the sideline, saying, all we need to do is get some turnovers, and we will. And the exact second that happens, it's a pick.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that one didn't result, but the way that the Detroit defense continued to play, I think they showed something yesterday, man. They showed that 49ers loss is long behind them. They had some adversity. They faced it. They pounded it. I don't want them to win the Super Bowl, but they might.
Biggest win of the weekend, and not just because they were behind and they had to come from behind with a field goal to win it, but the biggest win of the weekend for me is because their quarterback, who's been one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the entire league for the entire season, entire last 2 years maybe, threw 5 interceptions, and they still came back and won. If that doesn't tell your team that you can dance with anybody in this league at any given Sunday, especially in the Super Bowl, I don't know what else does, man.
Well, it's 5 on the stat line.
I know.
3 to football fans.
That's right. Yes, 3. Yeah, but
that's okay.
Yeah,
and it's still 5. And
it's still turnover.
It was the first team. What was the stat? It was the first team to come from behind more than 15 points and have 5 turnovers.
Yep.
And I mean, it says a lot about Detroit, and like you can't take the thing away from Detroit, but it does say a lot about the state of the Texans and how they were. They overachieved last year. The expectations were too high this year, and now that the expectations are too high, it's not that they're not going away. They're going to win that division.
Well, okay, so last year they came in with a young quarterback playing off of a bad. The season prior to that, they had a bad record, so they had a weak record schedule, right? Got to play some pretty weak teams. This year they're playing some good teams, and that may have been C.J. Stroud's biggest game up until this point in his career.
Yep.
And now he knows what it's like. And I don't expect that the next time if he got another shot tonight, I don't think it'd go the same way.
No, and look, the things that didn't go their way was, C.J. Stroud can't just put the whole game on his back. Still the best quarterback out of that draft last year, but he's not ready to be Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, like that guy that, you flip the switch and like it's game on.
Well, he still didn't know Diggs. They still didn't have Nico back, right?
I get so, like, I can't be a good quarterback because I don't have all my best receivers. Like, that's bullshit to me. The fact of the matter is...
That would be the case if you're playing against the Tennessee Titans. But if you're playing against the Detroit Lions, you may need all of your weapons to be the best quarterback on the field.
Well, in reality, the Detroit Lions have one receiver.
Sorry?
The Detroit Lions have one receiver. He's one really good receiver, but they have one.
Yeah, sure.
They didn't even throw the ball to him until the fourth quarter.
Sure. Sam Laporta, I'd say, is more receiver. It's the same thing that I kind of consider Kelsey, right? More receiver than tight end.
Sam Laporta this year is made out of glass.
He is.
But overall, Joe Mixon carried the ball 20 times and had like 30 yards. That's a problem. You can't run the ball. You can't even run the ball at home. That's a problem. So, you could put it on C.J. Stroud. You can say that he didn't have his weapons. Like, you had Joe Mixon. If you couldn't get Joe Mixon started, it doesn't matter who you're playing. If you give the guy 20 carries and he produces you 30 yards, tough break. You had a tough day at the office. You're not coming out with the dub.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they really wanted to, they needed to control that clock. The only way to control the clock is to run the ball. You can't run the ball, you are going to piss away your lead. And really, not the exact script, and Chad's saying that the Detroit win last night was scripted. Not the exact script as the 49ers-Lions game last year, but you just keep throwing the ball when you're up. Can't have it happen. The Atlanta Falcons lost the Super Bowl because of it. The Lions lost an NFC Championship game because of it. You can't run the ball, control the clock with a lead, you're in big trouble. So, overall, I'd say it's more kudos to Detroit than negatives to Houston. But if you were a Houston Texans fan, and nobody is, because, in reality, if you're not from Houston, you're not a Houston Texans fan, you should be concerned. I don't think that they could go on the road and win a playoff game. They won't need to in the wild card round, but they're not any further ahead than last year. And some would say, and I would be some, I think that they're further behind than last year. And it's because of everything that you're saying. Oh, Josh, Jamison Williams. No, I do not like him, Josh. I like the fact that he does steroids and gambles, but he would be a really good third receiver on any team.
He's got some burners. Probably getting near the end here, so we'll look at the scraps as far as teams go. I'm really enjoying seeing the Jaguars just crash and burn this year.
But you know what? All-time uniforms this week.
Yeah.
Those white buckets, those are tight.
Yeah.
I like those. So if Shad Khan is out there paying attention, I would go to that black jersey with the white numbers, white pants, and the white bucket. But yeah, Trevor Lawrence might need surgery. He gets surgery. He's probably done for the season. I don't believe that there's any type of quarterback controversy in Jacksonville. But I do think that a guy like Doug Peterson would be on the hot seat. I know that you like to watch that crash and burn. It was also a similar circumstance for the Colts.
Yeah,
You know, they felt like putting in Joe Flacco gave them the best chance to win, and I don't disagree. Drafting Anthony Richards 4th overall, right now we can call it a mistake. Maybe it wasn't, whatever the case is. But you put a guy like that in. You know the last time Buffalo beat Indianapolis in Indianapolis? Do you know when that was?
Oh, God. No, I don't know.
1998.
So I can't be one to make fun because the last time the Titans beat the Chargers in whatever home stadium they had.
Yeah. 3 home stadiums ago.
Yeah, was like 1993, like when they were the Houston Oilers. So,
That's
yeah,
yuck.
it's been some time.
That's yuck.
Yeah. But yeah. So talking, the shitty teams there. Jags, I love it because they couldn't bring anybody in the offseason free agency. I've talked about this. I've harped on this. They're not going to be able to do it again this year. Cash strap won't be able to do it. Indianapolis, this is a team who has tried to build through the draft and has never been able to do it under Doug Ballard.
Yep.
The guy is an absolute joke of a GM. He got lucky with Andrew Luck, and he hasn't been able to do anything since then after talk about generational talents. So it's nice to see them completely crash and burn.
Holy shit, you said I was a homer.
What?
Keep going, yeah. You're on a rant. You do you, bud.
So enjoying that. Little brother Houston. I know that they're better than us, so I can't really call them little brother, but it's because we came from them. It is okay to see them doing well because we know they're not going to make too much more noise in the AFC. But that just about does it for the AFC South, I think.
Yeah.
Don't really need to talk about my team.
Yeah. Well, look, we got, let's call it 5-ish minutes. I want to talk about the bottom middle tier of the AFC and who you think is going to be able to make some noise, because the NFL knows something that we don't. Because I don't know if you know this upcoming Sunday Night Football was flexed in there.
Yep.
And it's the Chargers and the Bengals.
Yeah.
And that's I believe that's 6-4 versus 4-6. Not your typical flex game. Now, I believe that they flexed out the Cowboys, so appreciate it. But what does that mean to you? Does that? And call me crazy. I think that there's 3 teams from the AFC North going to the playoffs, and I think that the Bengals, as much as they're 6-4 right now,
4-6.
Sorry, 4-6 right now. I do think that there's a chance they get in. Now, the chance they get in is because of how bad everybody else is. They still have a tough schedule, but they're done with Baltimore. They still have 2 with Pittsburgh. They have, I believe they still. Oh no, they already played the Chiefs. Sorry, but they can make it happen, and this is one of those games to make it happen. And if they can do that, you got teams like the Broncos that are down there. You got the Chargers. You got the Bengals. Really, after that, you're digging deep. You're into the Jets. So yeah. Do you disagree? I think that it's going 3-3.
Sorry.
3-2. Sorry.
3 from.
So I think it's gonna be 3 from the North and 2 from the West, and it's gonna come down to whether the Broncos or the Chargers can hold on.
I think it's 3 from the West.
You think it's 3? So you think the Broncos and the Chargers are gonna keep Cincinnati out?
I think that the Chargers have done just enough on defense, top to bottom, to be a competitive team.
They can run the ball, and Justin Herbert, to me, this year is one of the most underrated players in the league.
Well, he's got nobody to throw to. Absolutely nobody.
Well, Ladd McConkey would probably disagree, and so would Quentin Johnson. But I get it. I get what you're saying.
We're not talking about guys that you've studded up in your Madden franchise. We're talking about real life Quentin Johnson.
Yeah, I'm talking about first round picks from the NFL.
Just because they're first. Yeah. What was that guy that got traded to Minnesota? He's like Jalen Reagor. Yeah, first round pick. But yeah, no. I do think that defensively they've got some additions there in Charger country. They've done just enough noise on that side of the ball to be that team, I think. And I think they have a level-headed quarterback that doesn't make stupid decisions.
Yeah.
Mind you, that was a friggin' fumble yesterday. I don't know if you saw it, but that was a fumble.
No.
But yeah, that's why I think 3 out of the West. And then you mentioned earlier in the show talking about Bo Nix. I think that guy's really starting to put some things together. I think that things really turned the corner when they did that interview for him, when they talked about the interception. He's like, yeah, I threw the ball and it went in the other player's hands. Was one of those pissed off moments where he just wanted to get back to the tape and figure out what went wrong.
Yeah.
And I think ever since then, I think that's when things have begun to really chug for him.
But what about like any CPR for a team like Miami? Like Miami's playing tonight against the Rams. If Miami wins in LA tonight, that puts them at 4 wins. That puts them at 4-6 as well, I believe. Or would that be 3-7? I honestly don't even know. I stopped paying attention to them, but
they can't score points. Even if
that is a key part to winning. For
yeah,
sure.
and this is a team that's built on offense. They have been able to score points on defense. They've been suspect against the pass. The run game has been okay. I don't trust them. They're too wishy-washy from one game to the next.
Yeah.
I'm talking about CPR again, Malcolm. Tua is one slap on the head away from being out for the season, so I can't trust those guys, unfortunately.
Yeah.
There's no CPR there.
Okay, so there's no CPR there. So that's the AFC, and then really, really quickly we'll do the NFC. Hard to imagine that 10 weeks in, the Cardinals lead the division, but I do think that they're being simple enough, and they're making Kyler Murray look really good. It should be making Cliff Kingsbury look really bad, but he's got Jayden Daniels, so it's kind of a wash. It's one of those like perfect scenarios for both teams. So whether or not the 49ers get themselves back into this, who's kind of a shell of themselves, I think that there's a real possibility that there's three teams out of that division, and we're talking about the West. The Rams have enough guys, and they have Matt Stafford. Their defense is probably a little bit better than people want to give it credit for. They haven't been great, but they survived the lull. So if you think 3 could come out of the West, it's likely that 2 are coming out of the North. Probably 3. So I think the NFC race is getting a little tougher, because I kind of forgot about Minnesota there for a second. All right, so rank them out for me. Tell me where we're at, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
As far as where the standings are?
Well, just tell me who you think's going to make it and who's out. Like, someone's going to be out, and it seems like it's going to be somebody from either the West or the North. The NFC East is good. Philly and Washington right now, I'd say both have a high percentage to get in. If you're looking at the South right now, unless the Bucs really find a way to pick up steam, you're only looking at a really bad Atlanta team.
I don't think the Seahawks make it.
I agree. So I think it's Cardinals, Niners, Rams.
Okay.
But can a team like the Rams surpass a team like Green Bay, Minnesota, or Washington? Or Philly, for that matter, depending on where it lands.
No.
So the Rams, you just pulled the plug on the Rams too.
Yeah.
We're officially halfway through the season, so this is the time to start pulling the plug on people.
Yeah, I think that. I think the Rams haven't. Matthew Stafford is. It's when you watch a Rams game, it's almost like watching an old Lions game. He's the only heart on the field on the offensive side of the ball right now, it feels like. Even their running back, Kieran Williams, hasn't really done too much. He's been hurt too, unfortunately, but it just hasn't been there. Then they went and traded a pretty decent corner at the trade deadline, which almost kind of signaled that maybe they're thinking the same thing.
Yeah. Overall, it seems like the AFC playoff picture is clearer than the NFC. I think the NFC's got a lot going on down the stretch here. Because Philly and Washington have both sprinted out, I think that it's pretty easy to lock them both in. But like I said, it's only halfway through, so we're going to see how the rest of this thing plays out. We're going to go watch some Monday Night Football and give out a jersey of some sort. Looks like maybe a Cooper Kupp jersey. We got an electric crowd here that's ready for the game here. We just saw some people roll in, some familiar faces. So what we're going to do is we are going to sign off this week. We expect Chad to be back next week, and the three of us can hash out, see what Week 11 looks like, which is a big week of football. It starts with Washington, Philly, carries into Pittsburgh, Baltimore. Then we got Kansas City, Buffalo, and then we cap it off with what we think might be a playoff elimination game between Cincinnati and the Chargers. So stay tuned. Check us out next week, Week 11. We will see everyone then.